Hey everybody, Adam Small here again from MyMusicMasterclass, and today we have yet another review, and this time it's a multi-effects unit. Donner sent us their Arena2000 multi-effects processor, and if you turn it on, the first preset is called Hi There, which is very polite. And I love when my multi-effects units greet me in a polite way to start off the day. So I did a little research on this before opening it up, and I checked YouTube and watched some of those video reviews on the Arena2000. I'm going to try to focus on some different aspects of this unit that maybe weren't highlighted in the other videos. But first, let me just go through some of the basic specs just in case you haven't seen those videos. I'll try to keep this brief. So I'm gonna start with the sounds. We have 100 effects, 80 amp sims, and 50 cabinet models. Donner also packed in some impulse responses. There are 50 impulse responses, or IRs as they call them, built into the unit. And there's also 50 slots where you can upload your own IRs. And the manual states that the maximum allowed length of an impulse response is 23.2 milliseconds. There's also a drum machine on this thing with 40 patterns, 40 drum patterns, a built-in looper with a maximum length of 60 seconds. And there's some other really interesting stuff too. Let me start with the input and output section. You have a standard 1/4-inch input here, so that's how you get the guitar into the unit, right? And then we have some more options for the outputs. You have 2 1/4-inch outs, so you can go mono, just the left side out, or you can run stereo if you're running stereo effects, so you can do right and left. Or if you want to use the balanced out, you can just get an XLR cable and either run mono, which is the left side here, or you can run stereo, left and right. There's an aux in if you want to connect your laptop or an iPad or a phone via a 1/8-inch cable, which brings me to the headphone out, which is right next to it. And that's another 1/8-inch connector. You can just connect that to any headphones that you have and use this as a practice tool, or just if you want to practice or play silently. And then we have this USB-C connector here, which you can connect to your computer if you want to edit the sounds on this thing in your computer on software instead of on the unit itself. You have a MIDI in port right here, which can be used to expand the functionality of the unit. Ground lift in case you need to get rid of some noise. And lastly, of course, you have this power jack on the back, and that's it for the back. Before we go any further here, I want to do our standard disclaimer, which is that Donner sent us this product in exchange for a video review, but they didn't coach us or tell us what to say. So we're just gonna say it like it is. We're gonna be unbiased, and we're gonna move on with this video review. I'm gonna get to the effects and the amp models and all that stuff in just one second, but first let's just start with something slightly random, which is the drum machine feature. Now we're in drum machine mode, and I'm just gonna go through just a few of these just to show you what it does. You can tap the tempo, or you can set it up here. This is the level, and this is the tempo. Right now it's at 140 beats per minute. So let's just play this and see how it goes. Right here it says Control A. Let me see if I can lift this so you can see it. Control A and Control B and Control C. And that has to do with these, A, B, and C. So it's saying that A is play, B is stop, and this one over here is tap tempo. Let's start this up. All right, let's move to the next one. All right, we're still going here. Let me take the tempo down. Right, you could do that. Or I can do it this way with this knob. Right? So there's multiple ways. There are a bunch of presets, like I said. Here's one that's a jazz preset. Let's try another one. Okay, let's stop that. This one's called Metal 1. Okay, let's keep going. Metal 2. All right, there's a bunch. Here's Punk 1. I guess if you make that faster. There we go. Now, there are 3 ways to interact with this thing for most of the features. One of them is to do it on the unit itself. The other way is to connect the USB-C cable in here, put it into your computer, and download the Donner control software for your computer. And the third way, which I'm going to be highlighting in this video, is via phone or tablet. So I have an Android phone. I downloaded the Arena2000 app, and I'm going to try to do most of the settings with this app. And I'm going to put a secondary camera right over here so you could see it as I'm working on it. So you have your expression pedal here. This can be assigned to different things like volume or wah-wah or an effect parameter. You have a tuner, right? You can either click this tuner thing here. That'll bring it up. Or if I'm home, this is a home button up here. If I'm home, I can also just long press something and a tuner will pop up again. You can always get home by pressing the home button. There's a built-in looper. You can click the loop button. There's the drum button if you want to see the patterns. Down here, it's a little different. Whatever's illuminated is what is actually being used in your amp at the moment. So right now I have an amp, I have a cabinet, I have some delay and reverb on this sound. There's other ones that aren't illuminated, like this one that says drive. You can choose your drive. We'll do all this in a minute. This is the first effects slot, which right now has a chorus. There's a compressor, which has an LA2A. There's an EQ setting, noise gate, and you have another effect slot here at FXB, it's called. And right now it's set to pure boost, but of course you can switch it to anything you want. We will do all this on the phone in a minute. There were a few videos on YouTube that went through the presets on this and what those sounded like, so I'm not going to waste time going through every preset. Instead, I want to show you how this works functionally, let's say, from your phone, like I'm doing right now. If you want to make your own amp, put your own cool effects in, drag them to different orders, assign things, and do that. So let's start with this. This is the first preset. Now, only the illuminated things in this list are being used. I have an amp, a cabinet sim, and a reverb. None of these other things that are grayed out right now are being used, but we can add them. And they're all different parts of your chain, and I'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with the amp. So first, I've got my amp, and it's set to a Fender Twin, it says. There are other options. There's a Twin, there's a Champion, these are Fenders, a Bassman, there's a few Marshalls, more than a few. Voxes, Mesa Boogies, Bogners. You can also change the cabinet. It doesn't have to be just like a Fender Twin with a Fender Twin cabinet. This is a Fender Deluxe 112 that it's using right now. You could also use a Deluxe Reverb 112, a Tweed, an 8-inch, like, 1/8, Fender Bassman 410, Marshall speakers, Mesa speakers, all that stuff. And lastly, we have the reverb on this, right? So right now, this is set to a Hall. If I play this sound as it is, being a Fender, let's start here actually. If I play this sound as is, that's my amp, right? But I can raise the gain if I want to get a little more dirt on this sound, right? I can adjust the EQ. I can take the bass all the way down. All right, but I won't do that because that's crazy. The volume, obviously, this is just the EQ and the gain, right? So let's just say my gain's at like 32. Now, the cabinet itself, you can see that you have some options here. First you have, it says it's mic'd with a U87, that's a Neumann U87. It is center mic'd, you can change the distance, how close it is to the center, and these are high and low pass filters you can adjust. So you can really get very nuanced if you're very picky about how your cabinet's mic'd and all that stuff. Right now this reverb is set to a Hall by default on this preset. We can change that, but let's just look at the parameters. We have the mix, which is obvious. It's how much dry signal to reverb you have. If you go higher, it'll get more intense. More reverb, less guitar signal. And the decay, like let's see here, if you put it all the way up, it should be a long, long, long reverb. As opposed to a quick decay here. There are plenty of options here. This is a hall reverb. There's a room, there's a church, so I guess if you recorded in a church, that's what it would sound like. Dyna reverb, a spring, which is like a guitar amp. A plate reverb, which is nice on certain instruments or in certain settings. A mod reverb, which I'm assuming has some modulation effect on the reverb itself. Lo-fi reverb, it's probably filtered or something like that. A tremolo reverb, well, it probably has tremolo on the reverb. And a distortion reverb probably has distortion on the reverb. Let's try the distortion reverb. And of course you have depth, you have tone, you have decay. There's plenty of options to mess with. Mod reverb is probably a modulation effect. Okay, you get the idea here. There's plenty of options. I don't want to go too nuts in this, so let me get back to let's just start with let's do a plate. That sounds pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to keep it there for a minute. Let's mess with some of these other parameters. Let's start with the comp. All right, so this is some kind of compressor or limiter or something, right? That's what I would assume. Click this. If you want to turn it on, whoop. There we go. Now this is an LA2A, which is a classic unit. LA3A, another classic. There's a tube comp, Dyna comp. It says SLL. I wonder if that's an SSL clone. 1176 is another famous piece of hardware. So there's all different kind of options. Let's stick with this LA2A for now. Let's see, this is peak. So 100% would probably not be touching this thing at all. So what we need to do to make it engage is squash it more, bring the peak down. Let me take this peak really far down and then try to play hard and see if it squashes it. And like I said, there's other compressor or dynamic options here, but we're going to shut this off because if you want a compressor, you probably know how to use it and you can put it there in your chain. Well, actually, before I shut it off, I'll show you one thing. Let's say you wanted this in a different spot in your signal chain. Let's say you wanted to compress yourself instead of before your amp, after your amp. Well, you can just drag this. See? Now it's after my cabinet. But for now, I'm going to put it back to where it was. I'm just showing you that if you want to change the order of your effects, you can do it pretty easily here. And that is important when you're dealing with signal chain. So I'm going to shut this thing off. No compressors. Now, this FXA is a different one. Let's see what we can get in this bank. Right now it's set to a wah. Okay, so what do we have? What are our options? We have a wah 535, a wah 847, a tempo wah, an envelope filter, an intelligent gate, a pure boost, lead boost, filter, chorus. All right, there's different options. There's a phaser and a tremolo, so there's some modulation stuff. There's also pitch stuff in here, like an octave and just a pitch shifter and a step phaser. Let's put it on the envelope filter. adjust the parameters on this, the decay, the Q, right? The Q is going to make it higher or lower. See, that's a little higher frequency with this. You can probably make it even higher. And if you take it down, it should be mellower. You can hardly hear it there. You get the idea. And there's a decay and a sensitivity. You can put an octave here. Right, so right now I have an up and a down, right? So it says sub, up, and mix. So if I want no original signal at all, well, then it's 100% effects, like this. Take the up, down. Huh, take the up, down. Very interesting. That's just the sub. So you can do whatever you want. Change the mix. And you can try either wah-wah pedal, and you can assign them to the pedal on the unit itself, which I'll show you in a second. So if we try this one, right, we need to change this to EXP FXA, that's the bank we're in, and then wah 847, and it's like position, right? X that off, and let's see, now when I press the wah-wah, it should do wah-wah stuff. All right, let's try this. Okay, so I didn't put the camera on my foot. My foot was on the wah-wah pedal or the expression pedal on the unit. I figured that you could just see that in your mind and you didn't really need to see my foot rocking on the wah-wah pedal. But if you're angry about that, please leave an angry comment. Now I'll try to make the Q all the way up. Now if you turn on the drive, you get a bunch of distortion pedals, right? This is set to a tube screamer, that's the first one. And if we select that, right, we can see that we have gain, which is set to nothing right now, so this is half. All right, let's try this. Let's go higher. Okay, cool. You got a tube screamer. What other options do we have? A ton. Let's try the big muff over here. Okay, cool. Let's try to raise the tone, make it a little trillier. We can make it less gainy, just like usual. Make it more gainy. You can do whatever you want, and you can switch it to all these different models, okay? I'm going to shut that off. All right, we're done with the drive channel. Anyway, this is EQ, so if we go here, it's simply you have a 3-band EQ, or you have a choice between 5-band, 6-band, 10-band, and custom. I'm not going to mess with that, that's pretty self-explanatory. Now this one's a noise gate, so this is an intelligent gate. You have a noise gate here, or noise reduction. So these are just options, and if you have a high gain sound, you'd probably want some kind of gating, and that's why it's in here. Now if we get over here, we're at FXB. It's called FXB. So this is your other slot. And there's many options here too. But you do have another LA2A in here, which is interesting because you have that in the compressor section as well. But you have other things like boosts. There's pure boost and lead boost. There's a filter and some modulation stuff like a chorus, a flanger, phaser, vibrato, tremolo, a step phase, which we saw in the other section as well. So some of these are dupes and some of them are different. And there's a lo-fi setting, which does what? I'm curious. Oh, it's like a bit crusher. All right, if we put this at 100%, it should sound pretty weird. All these sound kind of fun, but let's try the tremolo. So this just has depth and rate, right? Depth meaning, let's just take this down. Depth meaning 100 would be really, really deep. Right, but we don't need to make it that extreme. We can just do it like this so it's not so crazy. And then rate would be how fast it's going, right? So it should be slower over here. So if you go this way, it looks like you can do it by note and not just by random number, right? So this is like, it says 1/8, 1/16, so 16th note. There's like 16th note triplets, 8th notes, all that kind of stuff. This is 16ths. And I think it has to do with this metronome down here. Let me try. Yeah, it does. So this is a metronome value. I guess you can tell this thing, the unit, what BPM your song's in if you're playing to a track or something. So let's say you're playing to 107 or 108 BPM. So I should be able to make this go to a quarter. There, quarter. And this should be right on 108 BPM. So I guess that's it. Da, da. I guess that's 108. Anyway, that's FXB, and I'm going to shut that off. Now we're at delay, and we're going to turn that on, and you have a lot of different options here. You have digital delay, analog delay, tape delay, echo delay, mod delay, ping pong delay, two-tap delay, reverse delay, tremolo delay, or lo-fi delay. Let's just try a tape delay and see what this sounds like. And obviously we can do the feedback, meaning how long it lasts. It should fade quicker. I'm going to make it pretty quick. So as you can see here, I can do a lot of what I need right here on the phone. For instance, I can take this big muff with this delay, do it like that. And then I can add something here and say I want a wah-wah in front of this. And I can even move my wah-wah after this distortion if I want, which I'm going to do like that, and to see how that sounds. Okay, so one important thing to note is that although you can change the signal chain order, which I showed you, like meaning you can take a distortion and put it in front or behind a wah-wah or a compressor or your phaser or whatever you're going to do, you can't have unlimited combinations of things, meaning that for instance, with your drives, let's say you have a big muff and you want to chain that with another distortion pedal, like a tube screamer or something for some reason. You can't have two distortions. You have to stick with whatever's in those banks. So whatever's in FXA, for instance, can be joined with the drive channel or whatever's in FXB or so on. But you can't have like two FXAs or two FXBs or two drives. So you are confined a little bit by that if you want to go off the rails and really create some crazy sonic palette with like 40 effects or just a lot of different combinations that are more unorthodox. But what I didn't say in the beginning of this video is the cost of this thing, which is $269.99 as of the filming of this video. And that is not a lot of money for this segment of multi-effects processors. So if you really need a rig that has 3 different, fuzz or distortion pedals feeding into 2 different phasers, feeding into an envelope filter, and then a wah-wah pedal or something very, very, very custom and unique, you're gonna have to spend more money than this and get something that's really specific to your needs. This unit is more for a general audience of guitarists that need to have good sounds and a lot of cool options to just get like a really good amp and cabinet and some effects in there, and just to get a good sound either to tape or to a powered monitor or something like that. And it really, really does that for the cost. With all that being said, I think this is a great unit, and I recommend it for anyone looking for like a budget multi-effects processor for guitar. I hope this video helps shine some light on areas or functionality of this unit that maybe you didn't see in these other videos I talked about before. And before I sign off, please subscribe, like the video if you did like it, leave a comment, whatever you want to do, and I'll see you on the next one.